I'm Sierra, 32, and I transformed our family business from a struggling venture to a $52 million company. Yet at my sister Madison's lavish birthday party last month, my parents called me useless and had security drag me out like a criminal. After 7 years of sacrificing everything while they took credit for my success, something inside me finally snapped. That night I froze, every account canceled their luxury trips, and sold my $19 million stake in the company they never deserved. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. I read every comment and would love to connect with others who faced family betrayal. Growing up in the Blackwood family was an exercise in constant comparison, and I always came up short. From our earliest years, it was clear that my younger sister Madison was the golden child while I was just there, the responsible one, the dependable one, the invisible one. Our parents, Robert and Elizabeth Blackwood, owned a small financial services company that struggled to stay afloat throughout most of my childhood. We lived comfortably enough in a middle-class suburb of Boston, but there were always hushed arguments about money behind closed doors. Despite the financial constraints, Madison never seemed to go without. Her dance lessons, her designer clothes, her elaborate birthday parties, these were non-negotiable expenses in our family budget. I still remember my 10th birthday. I'd been asking for a bicycle for months. Nothing fancy, just a simple blue one I'd seen at the local shop. When my birthday arrived, I received a practical set of books instead. My mother patted my shoulder and said, "These will help you with your studies, Sierra." 3 months later, on Madison's 8th birthday, she got not only the exact bicycle I had wanted, but also a new television for her bedroom. "Madison needs more encouragement with her confidence," my father explained when he caught me crying in my room. "You're already so self-sufficient, Sierra. You don't need these things like she does." And that became the theme of our childhood. Madison needed, while I was expected to make do. In high school, the pattern continued. I threw myself into academics, joining every club and honor society that would bolster my college applications. I stayed up until midnight studying, maintaining a perfect 4.0 GPA. Madison, meanwhile, coasted through with C's and occasional B's, spending most of her time at parties and with her extensive friend group. When college application season arrived, my parents attended every one of Madison's campus tours, but were too busy with work to visit any of mine. I still applied to top schools, determined to prove myself. Harvard. My father laughed when I told him where I'd applied. "Don't set yourself up for disappointment, Sierra. Be realistic." When the acceptance letter arrived along with a partial scholarship, my father's only comment was, "Well, that's going to be expensive." There was no celebration dinner, no proud phone calls to relatives, just concerns about money. Concerns that mysteriously vanished when Madison decided to attend an expensive liberal arts college with no scholarship at all. I worked 3 jobs during college: administrative assistant at the department office, tutor for undergraduate finance classes, and weekend shifts at a local cafe. Every dollar I earned went toward my tuition and expenses. Meanwhile, Madison's apartment near her campus was fully funded, along with a monthly allowance that exceeded what I made working all 3 jobs. Despite the exhaustion and constant financial stress, I excelled. I graduated summa cum laude with dual degrees in finance and business administration. The graduation ceremony should have been one of the proudest days of my life, but my parents arrived late, having attended Madison's sophomore art exhibition that same morning. They left early too, missing the honors recognition where I received the department's highest achievement award. "Sorry, we couldn't stay," my mother texted afterward. Madison needed a ride to her friend's party. "We'll celebrate your graduation soon." That celebration never came. Instead, I accepted a position at Morgan Stanley, packed my belongings, and moved to New York City. For the first time, I was building a life defined by my own achievements, rather than by comparison to my sister. I felt like I could finally breathe. For 5 years, I thrived in the high-pressure world of financial management. I worked with high-net-worth clients, developed innovative investment strategies, and earned recognition as a rising star in the company. My supervisors mentored me, my colleagues respected me, and for once, my success wasn't shadowed by Madison's need for the spotlight. I called my parents every Sunday, dutifully inquiring about the family business and Madison's ever-changing career aspirations. The conversations were always the same: brief updates on my life, followed by extensive discussions about Madison's latest adventure or crisis. I convinced myself that this distance was healthy, that I had finally escaped the family dynamic that had defined my childhood. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday in February, my father called me at work, something he had never done before. "Sierra," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "I need your help. The business is in trouble." Those words would change the course of my life, pulling me back into a family system I thought I had escaped. Looking back now, I wish I'd never answered that call. "How bad is it?" I asked my father as I surveyed the cluttered main office of Blackwood Financial Services. It was my first day back in Boston, having taken an emergency leave of absence from my position at Morgan Stanley. "We're 3 months behind on the office lease," my father admitted, not quite meeting my eyes, "and we've lost our three biggest clients in the past year." I spent that first day examining the company's financial records, and what I found was far worse than my father had indicated. The business wasn't just struggling, it was on the verge of bankruptcy. Outdated systems, mismanaged accounts, and a complete lack of digital presence had made the once respectable family firm nearly obsolete in the modern financial landscape. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked over a tense dinner with my parents that evening. "We didn't want to worry you," my mother said, rearranging the food on her plate. "You were doing so well in New York." "And we thought things would turn around," my father added defensively. "We've had rough patches before." What they didn't say, but what became immediately clear, was that they had been funneling money to Madison the entire time. Fresh out of college with an art history degree, my sister had spent the past 3 years finding herself, a journey that apparently required extensive international travel, a luxury apartment in Boston's Back Bay, and a revolving door of expensive hobbies, all subsidized by the failing family business. I should have walked away. I should have returned to my successful career in New York and let my parents face the consequences of their financial mismanagement. But some combination of family loyalty and the need to prove myself one final time led me to make a fateful decision. "I'll help," I told them, "but I need complete control of operations, and I'll need to own a stake in the company moving forward." My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite decipher before my father nodded. "Whatever you need. We're just grateful you're here." What began as a temporary return to help the family business soon became my all-consuming focus. I submitted my resignation to Morgan Stanley, sacrificing a promotion that had been all but guaranteed. I emptied my savings account to cover the company's most pressing debts. I worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, rebuilding Blackwood Financial Services from the ground up. The changes I implemented were extensive and immediate. I overhauled the entire technological infrastructure, moving all client management to a state-of-the-art digital platform. I redesigned our service offerings to focus on specialized financial planning for small business owners, a niche market the larger firms often overlooked. I personally reached out to former clients, offering incentives to return and demonstrating our new capabilities. For the first year, I lived on minimal salary, pouring every available dollar back into the business. I slept on a pull-out couch in my office more nights than I care to remember, fueled by determination and vending machine coffee. Slowly but surely, the company began to turn around. By the 18-month mark, we had regained our former clients and added dozens of new ones. By year 3, Blackwood Financial Services had tripled its annual revenue and expanded to a larger office space in downtown Boston. By year 5, we were being featured in industry publications as a case study in successful business transformation. Throughout this period, my parents remained the public face of the company. They attended industry events, accepted awards, and gave interviews about the family-owned business that adapted to changing times. My contributions were mentioned only in passing, if at all. "Your father has always had such a head for business," I overheard my mother telling a reporter at a financial services gala. "He knew exactly what changes were needed to modernize the company." I told myself it didn't matter. I had negotiated a 37% ownership stake when I returned, making me the largest individual shareholder. The company's success meant my own financial security was assured. If my parents needed the public recognition, I could give them that small concession. Meanwhile, Madison had been placed on the company payroll with the vague title of creative director. Her responsibilities were nebulous at best, non-existent at worst. She came to the office perhaps once a week, usually to approve designs for marketing materials, or to use the company credit card for client entertainment, which suspiciously often involved restaurants and clubs that aligned with her personal interests. Madison brings a fresh perspective, my father would say whenever I questioned her role. Not everything is about spreadsheets and profit margins, Sierra. I bit my tongue and continued working, watching as the company I had saved and built continued to grow. By year 7, last year, Blackwood Financial Services was valued at $52 million, employed a staff of 48 dedicated professionals, and managed over $300 million in client assets. I had built something remarkable from the ruins of my parents' failing business. And then came Madison's 30th birthday party, the event that would finally expose the truth about how my family really saw me, despite everything I had accomplished. The invitation to Madison's birthday celebration arrived in my email just 3 days before the event, an obvious afterthought. It was to be held at the Oakmont Country Club, one of the most exclusive venues in Boston, with a guest list of over 200 people. The email mentioned that the company would be covering the expenses as a corporate event, since many clients and business associates would be attending. I scrolled through the elaborate invitation with its gold-embossed digital design, feeling that familiar twinge of being an outsider in my own family. Despite being the de facto CEO of Blackwood Financial Services, I hadn't been consulted about using company funds for what was clearly a personal celebration. But then again, I rarely was when it came to Madison's expenses. Still, I wanted to make the effort. Perhaps this time would be different. Perhaps with the company's success so evident, my parents might finally acknowledge my contributions. I spent the next 2 days searching for the perfect gift, eventually finding a vintage Cartier bracelet that Madison had once admired in a magazine spread years ago. It cost nearly $15,000, an extravagant sum, but I could afford it now, and I wanted to make a genuine gesture of goodwill. The night of the party arrived, and I dressed carefully in a tailored black Alexander McQueen dress, simple but elegant. I tucked the small blue Cartier box into my clutch and drove to the country club, arriving precisely at 8 o'clock, as specified on the invitation. The grand ballroom had been transformed into a spectacular vision of white orchids, crystal chandeliers, and champagne fountains. A 10-piece orchestra played in the corner, and waitstaff in formal attire circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The cost must have been astronomical, far more than the modest corporate event my parents had described when putting it on the company books. My mother spotted me first, her smile tightening almost imperceptibly as I approached. "Sierra, you made it," she said, air kissing near my cheek. "Madison will be so pleased." "Happy to be here," I replied, looking around at the opulent display. "This is quite the celebration." "Nothing but the best for our Madison," my father interjected, appearing at my mother's side. 30 is a milestone birthday. I recalled my own 30th birthday 2 years earlier, a quiet dinner alone after working late with a single congratulatory text from my mother that also reminded me about Madison's upcoming art show. "It looks wonderful," I said, pushing the memory aside. "Is Madison here yet? I have something for her." "She's making her entrance at 9, my mother explained. "Why don't you get yourself a drink? The Hendersons are here. You know from Atlantic Trust. You should say hello. Keep up those business connections." I nodded and moved toward the bar, trying to ignore the dismissive way she had redirected me. As I waited for my sparkling water, I overheard a conversation from a nearby group that included my father and several major investors in our company. "Madison has such a natural gift for client relations," my father was saying. "Elizabeth and I are grooming her to take over the company in the next few years. She has the perfect temperament for leadership." I nearly dropped my glass. Madison take over the company, Madison, who couldn't read a balance sheet if her life depended on it. Madison, who had contributed exactly nothing to the business I had rebuilt from scratch. Before I could process this information, the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the grand staircase. Madison appeared at the top, resplendent, in a custom-designed white gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. The crowd erupted in applause as she descended, my parents rushing forward to escort her into the room like visiting royalty. I watched from the sidelines, that familiar feeling of invisibility washing over me, despite my executive position and substantial ownership stake. Madison worked the room like a politician, accepting birthday wishes and compliments with practiced grace. My parents orbited around her, introducing her to important business contacts as the future of Blackwood Financial. After nearly an hour of this, Madison finally made her way to the center of the room where a microphone had been set up. My father clinked a knife against his champagne flute, calling for attention. "We have an exciting announcement to make on this special occasion," he declared, beaming with pride. "In honor of Madison's 30th birthday, we are pleased to announce her promotion to Chief Executive Officer of Blackwood Financial Services." The room erupted in applause once more. I stood frozen, my mind racing to make sense of what I was hearing. CEO. I was the CEO in everything but formal title, a technicality we had never bothered to update in the company records since I preferred to work behind the scenes. But to publicly announce Madison, who barely understood the business, as the new chief executive, it was beyond insulting. It was delusional. Madison stepped up to the microphone, flashing her camera-ready smile. "Thank you all so much. I'm so excited to lead Blackwood Financial into the future. We have some amazing plans coming up that I can't wait to share with you all. Plans I had developed, initiatives I had created, a future I had built while she was posting Instagram photos from Bali on the company dime. I needed air. I needed space to think. I placed my untouched glass on a nearby table and made my way toward the terrace doors. Before I could reach them, my father intercepted me. "Where are you going? Madison is about to cut the cake." "I need a moment," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad, what was that announcement about? We never discussed Madison becoming CEO." His expression hardened. "It's a formality, Sierra. You know how these things work. Madison has the presence, the charisma clients respond to. She's the face people want to see. But she doesn't know the first thing about running the company." I protested, still keeping my voice low. "The business would collapse within months." "That's why we have you," he said dismissively. "You're good with the numbers, the boring details. Madison will be the leadership presence we need to attract bigger clients." "The boring details," I repeated, disbelief washing over me. "Those boring details saved the company. Those boring details built it into what it is today." My mother appeared at my father's side, her smile fixed but her eyes cold. "Sierra, people are starting to look. Can we discuss this later? Tonight is about celebrating Madison. We need to discuss it now." I insisted, my patience finally wearing thin. "You just announced a major company change without consulting the majority shareholder. That's not just disrespectful. It could be legally problematic." "Oh, for heaven's sake," my mother hissed. "Why do you always have to make everything about you? This is Madison's night. Can't you for once just be happy for your sister without making a scene?" "I'm not making a scene," I said, maintaining my composure despite the rising heat in my cheeks. "I'm trying to have a private conversation about a business decision that affects all of us." "Robert," my mother turned to my father, "deal with this. I need to get back to the guests." My father's expression darkened as my mother walked away. "Sierra, I've had enough of your attitude. We gave you a chance when you had nowhere else to go, and this is how you repay us. By trying to ruin your sister's moment." "Nowhere else to go," I repeated, genuinely confused. "Dad, I left a successful career at Morgan Stanley to save your failing business. I worked myself to exhaustion for years to build it into what it is today. And we're grateful for the help," he said, his tone making it clear he was anything but. "But let's be honest. You've always been jealous of Madison. Always trying to compete with her, always keeping score." I stared at him, speechless. Was that genuinely how he saw the past 7 years of my life? As some petty competition with my sister? "I'm not jealous of Madison," I finally managed. "I just want recognition for the work I've done, for the company I built." "The company you built," he scoffed loud enough now that nearby guests were starting to notice our conversation. "This is the Blackwood family business. It was successful long before you came along with your fancy New York ideas." "It was 3 months from bankruptcy when I stepped in," I reminded him, struggling to keep my voice level. "You and Mom had run it into the ground while funneling money to Madison's lifestyle." My father's face flushed with anger. "That's enough. I won't have the useless daughter causing a scene at the successful daughter's birthday. You handle the boring details because that's all you're good for, Sierra. No one wants to see your face representing this company. No one." His words hit me like a physical blow. Useless daughter. After everything I had sacrificed, everything I had achieved, that was how my father saw me. I looked around the room, seeing the averted gazes and uncomfortable expressions of the guests who had overheard. My clients, my business associates, people who knew exactly who had built Blackwood Financial into its current success. "I think I should leave," I said quietly, dignity being all I had left at that moment. "Yes, I think you should," my father agreed coldly. He raised his hand, and to my shock, two security guards approached. "Please escort Ms. Blackwood out. She's not feeling well." "Dad, you can't be serious," I protested, embarrassment burning through me as the security guards flanked me on either side. "I've never been more serious," he replied. "You've always been a disappointment, Sierra. Tonight just confirms it." As the security guards led me through the ballroom past whispering guests and wide-eyed staff, I caught sight of Madison watching from beside the elaborate birthday cake. There was no surprise on her face, no distress at seeing her sister humiliated and removed. Just a small, satisfied smile that told me everything I needed to know about her role in this public execution. The last thing I saw before the doors closed behind me was my mother smoothly addressing the crowd. "Please forgive the interruption, everyone. Family businesses can be so emotional sometimes." Now, where were we? Ah, yes, Madison's speech about her exciting vision for the company. Standing alone in the parking lot of the Oakmont Country Club, the gift box for Madison still clutched in my hand, I made a decision that would change all our lives forever. The Blackwood family had made their choice, and now I would make mine. The drive home from the country club passed in a blur. Streetlights streaked past my windows like shooting stars as I gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, my father's words echoing in my mind. "Useless daughter, boring details. No one wants to see your face." 7 years. 7 years of my life poured into saving their company, building their wealth, securing their future. And this was what it had earned me: public humiliation and family betrayal. When I arrived at my downtown apartment, I kicked off my heels in the entryway and went straight to my home office. Unlike the minimalist, elegant design of the rest of my living space, this room was all business. Multiple monitors, ergonomic chair, and the most powerful computing setup money could buy. This was where I often worked late into the night, reviewing client portfolios and developing new investment strategies for the company. The company that had just announced Madison as its new CEO. I sat at my desk and took several deep breaths, trying to process the magnitude of what had happened. This wasn't just a family squabble. This was a hostile takeover of everything I had built, orchestrated by the very people who should have been my biggest supporters. My phone began buzzing with notifications, concerned texts from a few employees who had witnessed the scene, emails from clients who had been at the party, and finally a series of increasingly angry messages from my father. "You've embarrassed the entire family. Madison is devastated that you tried to ruin her birthday. We expect you at the office tomorrow to smooth this over with the Henderson account." That last message was the tipping point. After publicly humiliating me after having security escort me out like a criminal, he still expected me to show up and do damage control, to protect the client relationships I had painstakingly built, while they continued to sideline me. Not anymore. I pulled up the company's secure management portal, a system I had personally designed and implemented with security protocols that only I fully understood. As Chief Financial Officer, my official title despite functioning as the CEO, I had administrative access to every aspect of the company's operations. First, I froze all the corporate credit cards except my own, the ones my parents used for business expenses, that were actually personal indulgences, the one Madison used to fund her lavish lifestyle under the guise of client entertainment. With a few keystrokes, those cards would be declined the next time they tried to use them. Next, I placed holds on all the company bank accounts that required dual authentication. My parents could see the money, but they couldn't move it without my approval. Approval I had no intention of giving. I pulled up Madison's business calendar and reviewed her upcoming meetings. As I suspected, these were thinly veiled personal trips. A week in Paris, supposedly to meet with European investors, though we had no European investment division, and a strategic retreat in the Maldives the following month. I canceled both bookings, making sure the substantial deposits were refunded to the company account that was now frozen. Then I moved to the most consequential step. I pulled up the contact information for Julian Bennett, the CEO of Meridian Financial Group, one of our biggest competitors who had been trying to acquire a stake in our company for years. I had always been the one to rebuff their offers, believing in the value of keeping Blackwood a family business. That loyalty now seemed laughably misplaced. I drafted a brief professional email, Julian. I believe the time is right to discuss your interest in acquiring a stake in Blackwood Financial Services. As the majority individual shareholder, 37%, I am prepared to sell my entire position. Please contact me at your earliest convenience to discuss terms. Regards, Sierra Blackwood, CFO, Blackwood Financial Services. I hit send, then immediately began compiling a comprehensive dossier of my contributions to the company since my return 7 years ago. Every major client I had acquired, every innovative system I had implemented, every financial rescue I had orchestrated when my parents' or Madison's spending threatened to destabilize our growth. I included before and after financial statements showing the company's value. When I arrived, approximately $3 million, most of it leveraged against debt, and its current valuation, $52 million. I also documented the systematic misuse of company funds by my parents and Madison, the personal expenses coded as business necessities, the phantom job titles created to justify Madison's salary, the luxury trips with no business purpose. I didn't do this out of vindictiveness, but as protection. When the dust settled, I needed evidence that my actions had been justified. As I worked, my phone continued to buzz with incoming messages. I finally silenced it without reading any more. Whatever they had to say could wait until morning when they discovered exactly what I had done. By 3 in the morning, I had completed my documentation, responded to Julian's enthusiastic reply. He had been working late and saw my email immediately and drafted formal notifications to the board about my intention to sell my shares. I had also prepared a detailed transition document outlining all the systems and processes that only I fully understood, knowing that whoever took over would need this information. As I finally prepared for bed, I felt oddly calm. The anger and hurt were still there, a dull ache behind my breastbone, but they were overshadowed by a strange sense of liberation. For 7 years, I had carried the burden of the family business, enduring my parents' favoritism and Madison's entitlement while telling myself it was worth it for the sake of our shared success. But it had never been shared, had it? The success was mine, built through my expertise, my sacrifice, my vision. The only thing shared was the profit, funneled to family members who saw me as nothing more than a convenient calculator, a means to fund the lifestyle they felt entitled to. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about the Cartier box still sitting in my purse. Tomorrow I would return it and put the money towards something for myself instead. Something to mark not Madison's birthday, but my own independence, my own worth. For the first time in years, I slept deeply and dreamlessly unburdened by the weight of others' expectations. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. The first call came at 6:42 a.m. My father, his name flashing on my phone screen, with an urgency that would have sent me scrambling to answer just 24 hours earlier. I declined the call, silenced my phone, and continued my morning routine. Yoga, shower, coffee. The familiar rhythm felt different today, infused with a strange calm certainty that had been missing before. By 8 o'clock, I had 17 missed calls, 29 text messages, and 11 emails from various family members. I scanned them briefly while sipping my coffee. What have you done? My father. The cards aren't working. Fix this now. My mother. This isn't funny, Sierra. Unlock the accounts. Madison. This is illegal. We'll sue you. My father again. Please call me immediately. This is a company emergency. My mother. The tone evolved from angry to panicked as the messages progressed, culminating in my father's most recent text. We need to talk. Family meeting at the house, 10 a.m. Be there. I texted back a simple response. I'll be at my apartment all day. You're welcome to come here if you'd like to talk. Setting the terms of engagement was a small act of rebellion, but it felt significant. For too long, I had accommodated their demands, rearranged my schedule to fit their convenience driven across town whenever they summoned me. Not today. While waiting for their inevitable arrival, I checked my email. Julian from Meridian Financial had already sent over a preliminary offer for my shares, $19.24 million based on the company's current valuation. It was a fair offer, possibly even slightly above market rate. He also included a personal note expressing his admiration for what I had built at Blackwood and hinting at a potential executive position at Meridian should I be interested. I was in the middle of reviewing the offer details when my doorbell rang, followed by aggressive knocking. I checked the security camera to see my parents standing in the hallway, my father's face flushed with anger, my mother tight-lipped and pale. Madison was noticeably absent. I buzzed them in and waited by the open door of my apartment, mentally preparing for the confrontation to come. They emerged from the elevator moments later, my father storming down the hallway like a man on a mission. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he demanded, brushing past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. My mother followed her eyes, darting around my living room as if searching for evidence of some crime. I closed the door calmly and gestured toward the sofa. "Please have a seat." "I don't want to sit," my father snapped. "I want you to explain why our corporate cards were declined at breakfast this morning, why the accounts are frozen, why I got a call from Julian Bennett congratulating me on the pending sale of a major stake in our company." "My stake," I corrected quietly. "My 37% ownership that I earned by saving the business you ran into the ground." "You can't sell without board approval," my mother interjected, finally finding her voice. "It's in the company bylaws." "Actually, I can," I replied. "If you had ever bothered to read the shareholder agreement I drafted when I took ownership, you'd know that my shares are unrestricted. The board has right of first refusal, but they cannot prevent the sale entirely." "This is about last night, isn't it?" my father said, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. "You're throwing a tantrum because Madison got some recognition for once." "Recognition," I repeated, amazed at his characterization. "You announced her as CEO of a company she has contributed nothing to, a company I rebuilt from scratch while she was posting beach photos from company-funded vacations. She brings intangible value, my mother insisted, the familiar refrain whenever Madison's role was questioned. "Client relationships, creative direction." "Please stop," I interrupted, suddenly tired of the same old excuses. "Madison has brought nothing of value to Blackwood Financial. She has been a drain on resources, a source of inappropriate expenses, and an embarrassment in client meetings when she can't answer basic questions about our services." "How dare you speak about your sister that way?" my mother gasped. "How dare you call me the useless daughter after everything I've done for this family?" I countered, finally, allowing some of my hurt to show. "How dare you have security escort me out of an event funded by the company I saved? How dare you announce Madison as CEO without even discussing it with me?" My father's face flushed darker. I was angry. People say things when they're angry. "No, Dad, you said exactly what you've always thought. I was just too blind to see it until now." I moved to the kitchen counter and retrieved a printed copy of Julian's offer. "I'm selling my shares to Meridian. The preliminary paperwork will be ready this afternoon. Once the sale is complete, I'll resign from Blackwood Financial Services effective immediately." My mother sank onto the sofa, her composure finally cracking. "You can't do this to us. The company needs you." "The company has Madison now," I replied without inflection. "Your new CEO, the face people want to see." "Be reasonable, Sierra." My father said, his tone shifting to one I recognized from business negotiations, conciliatory but calculating. "We can work this out. Whatever you want. A better title, a bigger office, more public recognition. It's yours. Just stop this madness before you destroy what we've all built together." "What I built," I corrected him again. "And I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply extracting my value from a business relationship that no longer serves me." "Business relationship?" my mother repeated, aghast. "We're your family." "Are we?" I asked quietly. "Because last night Dad made it very clear that I'm not family. I'm just the useless daughter who handles the boring details." "I told you I was angry," my father insisted. "I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "And that's okay. I don't need you to love me or value me anymore. I know my worth now." The conversation continued in circles for nearly an hour. They cycled through anger, bargaining, guilt, and finally desperation. My mother cried. My father threatened legal action, then backtracked when I calmly pointed out the documentation I had prepared regarding their misuse of company funds. They promised changes, better treatment, public acknowledgement of my contributions. Through it all, I remained calm, resolute in my decision. When they finally left, both looking shell-shocked and defeated, I felt no triumph, no vindictive satisfaction, just a quiet certainty that I was finally doing what I should have done years ago. Later that afternoon, Madison showed up alone. Unlike our parents, she didn't bother with pretense. "You're really doing this?" she asked, standing in my living room with arms crossed. "Selling your shares just to spite me? Not everything is about you, Madison," I replied, the irony of her accusation not lost on me. "This is a business decision. I'm extracting my capital from an investment that no longer aligns with my values or goals." "Cut the corporate speak," she snapped. "You're jealous. You've always been jealous of me. And now that I'm finally getting my chance to shine, you're trying to ruin everything." I studied my sister. Beautiful, confident, entitled Madison, who had never questioned her place as the family favorite, who had never had to work for anything, who genuinely believed she deserved to be handed the leadership of a company she hadn't helped build. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," I said honestly. "I'm simply stepping away from a situation that is no longer healthy for me. You wanted to be CEO. Congratulations, you got your wish, but you'll have to do it without my expertise or my ownership stake." "You think I can't run the company?" she challenged, tossing her hair back in a gesture of defiance. "I know you can't," I replied without heat, "but that's not my concern anymore." "The clients trust me," she insisted. "I have relationships with all the major accounts. Do you know their portfolio structures, their risk tolerances, their tax situations, their estate plans, their children's college funds that we manage?" Her silence was answer enough. "I thought not," I continued. "But again, not my concern. I've prepared detailed transition documents for whoever takes over my responsibilities. Whether that's you or someone qualified is up to the board now." "You're making a mistake," Madison said, her voice smaller now. "Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this." "Perhaps not," I acknowledged, "but I'm learning to forgive myself for waiting so long to stand up for my own worth. That's more important to me now." She left shortly after no resolution reached, no reconciliation offered on either side. As the door closed behind her, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The weight of expectations I could never meet, of approval I would never earn, of love that was always conditional. By the end of the day, the preliminary paperwork for the sale of my shares was complete. Within a week, the transaction would be finalized, transferring my 37% stake in Blackwood Financial Services to Meridian Financial Group for $19.24 million. I would be financially secure for life, free to pursue whatever path I chose next. That night, I opened a bottle of champagne I had been saving for a special occasion. As I sipped the crisp, bubbly liquid on my balcony overlooking the Boston skyline, I toasted to new beginnings, to self-respect, and to the realization that sometimes walking away is the greatest victory of all. The news of my departure from Blackwood Financial Services and the sale of my shares to Meridian created ripples throughout Boston's financial community. Former colleagues called to express their shock, and in many cases their support. Clients reached out concerned about the future of their accounts. Even a few board members contacted me privately, admitting they had always known I was the true force behind the company's success. I responded to each message with professionalism and discretion, never disparaging my family, despite the temptation to set the record straight. What had happened between us was private, even if the business implications were public. In the weeks that followed, I watched from a distance as Blackwood Financial began to unravel without my guidance. My detailed transition documents proved insufficient to bridge the knowledge gap I left behind. Critical client meetings were missed. Investment strategies faltered without my oversight. Systems that I had built and maintained began to show signs of neglect. 3 weeks after my departure, I received an unexpected call from Thomas Henderson, the patriarch of the Henderson family, and one of Blackwood's biggest clients. He had been present at Madison's birthday party and had witnessed my humiliating removal. "I've moved our accounts to Meridian," he informed me without preamble. I understand you're not working with them directly, but at least my money will be managed by a firm that recognizes talent when they see it. I appreciate your confidence, Mr. Henderson, I replied, careful to maintain professional boundaries. Meridian has an excellent team. Not as good as you, he said bluntly. When you decide where you're landing, let me know. My family's portfolios will follow you. His wasn't the only such call. Over the next month, Blackwood Financial lost 30% of its client base, primarily the high-value accounts I had personally managed. Without those clients, and with access to company funds still restricted my final act, before resignation had been to implement new financial controls that required board approval for large expenditures. The company's cash flow quickly became problematic. I heard through industry contacts that Madison lasted exactly 17 days as CEO before the board insisted on bringing in an outside executive to stabilize the situation. My father was moved to an advisory role, a polite fiction that allowed him to save face while removing him from any meaningful decision-making. My mother resigned her position as Director of Client Relations shortly thereafter. None of this brought me joy. Despite everything, these were people I had loved and tried to please for 32 years. Their failures weren't victories for me. They were simply the natural consequences of choices made over many years. 6 months after my departure, I was having lunch with Patricia, my former assistant, who had become a close friend when she mentioned that Blackwood Financial was being acquired by a national firm for a fraction of its former value. $12 million for the whole company, she said, shaking her head. Less than what you got for your shares alone. The board had no choice. They were bleeding clients and couldn't meet operating expenses. What about my family? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop myself. Patricia hesitated. Your father has been offered a ceremonial position with the acquiring company. No real responsibilities, just a title to ease the transition. Your mother isn't being retained. And Madison... What about Madison? I prompted when she trailed off. She's been telling everyone who'll listen that you sabotaged the company out of jealousy, Patricia admitted. But no one who actually worked with you believes that. We all know what you did for Blackwood Sierra, how you saved it, how you built it. I nodded, absorbing this information without surprise. It was the narrative my sister needed to preserve her self-image, to avoid confronting her role in what had happened. And how are you doing? Patricia asked, changing the subject. Still enjoying the break from the financial world? After finalizing the sale of my shares, I had decided to take 6 months off, the first real break I'd had since college. I traveled not in Madison's aimless style, but with purpose, visiting financial centers around the world and meeting with innovative leaders in the industry. I'd also begun mentoring young women in finance through a program I'd established with part of my windfall. I confirmed with a genuine smile. But I'm also starting to feel ready for the next chapter. Julian from Meridian has been persistent about bringing me on as their chief strategy officer. I'm considering it. They'd be lucky to have you, Patricia said loyally. Though I always pictured you starting your own firm, building something that truly reflects your values from the ground up. Her words stayed with me long after our lunch ended. Building something that truly reflects my values. Wasn't that what I had tried to do at Blackwood, only to have my vision corrupted by family dynamics that were beyond my power to change? 2 weeks later, I received the call I had been both expecting and dreading. My father. His voice roughened by what sounded like recent tears. Sierra, he began, then fell silent as if unsure how to continue. Hello, Dad, I replied neutrally, waiting for him to find his words. The sale to National Trust is complete, he finally said. Blackwood Financial Services no longer exists. I closed my eyes, feeling a pang of grief for the company I had poured so much of myself into. I heard. I'm sorry it came to that. Are you? He asked, a hint of the old bitterness creeping into his tone. Then he sighed heavily. No, I'm sorry. That's not fair. I didn't call to argue. Why did you call Dad? I asked gently. Another long silence. To apologize, I suppose. Too little too late, but I was wrong, Sierra. About a lot of things. The company needed you more than we ever acknowledged. I needed you more than I ever admitted. His words, so long wished for now, felt strangely hollow. Thank you for saying that. Your mother and we've been doing some hard thinking since everything fell apart, about how we treated you, about the favoritism we showed Madison. We didn't see it then, but looking back. It's okay, Dad, I interrupted, not needing to hear the painful details of their belated self-reflection. What's done is done. Could we meet? He asked hesitantly. All of us. You, me, your mother, Madison. Try to start healing this rift before it's too late. I considered his request, weighing the potential for genuine reconciliation against the risk of falling back into old patterns. I don't think I'm ready for that, I admitted. Maybe someday, but not yet. His disappointment was palpable, even through the phone. I understand, but when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'll be here. After we hung up, I sat for a long while, with my thoughts processing the complex emotions his call had stirred up. Grief for the company that was gone, lingering hurt from years of unequal treatment, a tiny flicker of hope that perhaps with the business no longer between us, we might someday find a way back to being a family. A healthier one this time, with boundaries and mutual respect. But that was a bridge to cross another day. For now, I had my own path to forge. The next morning, I called Julian at Meridian and declined his job offer with genuine gratitude. Then I contacted a real estate agent about office space in downtown Boston, and a lawyer about incorporation paperwork for a new financial services firm, one built on transparency, integrity, and genuine value creation for clients. Sierra Capital Management was born not from spite or revenge, but from the recognition of my own worth and capabilities. The lessons I had learned through loss and betrayal would serve as the foundation for something stronger, something truly mine. As for my family, time would tell whether our relationships could be rebuilt on a healthier foundation. Madison had reached out once, a tentative text asking if we could talk. My mother had sent flowers on my birthday for the first time in years. Small gestures, but perhaps the beginning of something new. 1 year after the night that changed everything, I stood in the lobby of my new offices watching as the sign installers put the finishing touches on the Sierra Capital Management logo. My team, hand-picked industry veterans who valued substance over style, busied themselves with final preparations for our grand opening the following week. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas Henderson. Looking forward to tomorrow's meeting. The family is excited to be your first official client. I smiled and typed back a quick response, then returned my attention to the bustling office around me. This was what success looked like. Not measured in dollars or accolades, but in the creation of something authentic and aligned with my values. Something built not to please others or earn their approval, but to express my own vision and purpose. The journey had been painful, the lessons hard-won. But standing there watching my own name being installed above the reception desk, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Sometimes you have to lose everything you thought you wanted to find what you truly need. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is simply walking away. And sometimes, in that walking away, you find your way home to yourself. It's been exactly 1 year since I walked out of my family's lives and started over on my own terms. Sierra Capital Management has grown from a hopeful vision to a thriving reality, with assets under management already approaching $100 million and a client list that reads like a who's who of Boston's business elite. The Henderson family became our anchor clients, bringing not only their considerable wealth, but also their connections and endorsements. Thomas Henderson, now something of a fatherly mentor to me, never misses an opportunity to tell people how I transformed his family's financial outlook with innovative strategies that Blackwood could never have implemented. Sierra sees opportunities others miss, he told Forbes in a recent profile of emerging wealth management firms. She combines technical expertise with genuine care for her clients' long-term well-being. That's increasingly rare in this industry. My team has grown to 12 dedicated professionals, each selected not just for their technical skills, but for their alignment with our core values, integrity, innovation, and client focus. Many are women and minorities who, like me, found themselves undervalued in traditional financial institutions. Under my leadership, they've flourished, bringing perspectives and ideas that have differentiated us in a crowded marketplace. I still think about my family, of course. It would be a lie to say I don't. The wound has scarred over, but certain triggers can still bring back the pain of that night at the Oakmont Country Club. A particular song played by string orchestras, the scent of white orchids, sometimes even just the sound of champagne being poured. Madison reached out several times in the months following Blackwood's dissolution. Her initial messages were accusatory and bitter, blaming me for destroying the family legacy. Gradually, as reality set in, and she was forced to find actual employment for the first time in her life, her tone shifted. "I never understood what you did at the company," she admitted in an email sent 6 months after our fall. "It all seemed like numbers and technical jargon to me. But now that I'm working an entry-level position at 31, I'm starting to appreciate how much skill and knowledge you must have had, how hard you must have worked." We met for coffee once 3 months ago at a neutral location, halfway between my office and the apartment she now shares with 2 roommates, a far cry from the luxury Back Bay residence she once enjoyed on the company dime. The conversation was awkward, stilted by years of competition and resentment, but not hostile. "I'm thinking about going back to school," she told me, stirring her latte nervously. "Maybe get an MBA or something. Try to understand the business world better." "That's great, Madison," I said, genuinely pleased by this sign of growth. "You always had good people skills. With some technical knowledge to back that up, you could be very successful." She looked at me with surprise, perhaps expecting sarcasm or condescension. "You really think so?" "I do," I replied honestly. "You just need to build it yourself, not have it handed to you." We parted with a tentative hug and a promise to stay in touch, a promise we've both kept through occasional texts and brief updates on our lives. My parents have been a more complicated story. My father, stripped of the business identity that defined him for decades, struggled with depression after Blackwood's sale. My mother, ever adaptable, has reinvented herself as a consultant to charitable foundations, leveraging her social connections to create a new role for herself in Boston society. They've reached out several times, inviting me to dinners and family events. I've declined most, accepting only a brief lunch with my mother 3 months after everything fell apart. Like Madison, she initially blamed me for the family's reversal of fortune. "You could have handled things differently," she insisted, as we sat in an upscale restaurant far removed from our usual family haunts. "You didn't have to be so drastic." "Maybe," I conceded, unwilling to argue about choices now firmly in the past. "But I did what I felt was necessary at the time." "Your father misses you," she said, changing tactics. "He's not the same without you." "I miss him too sometimes," I admitted. "The father I wanted him to be, at least." She winced at that, perhaps recognizing the truth in my words. "People can change, Sierra, given the chance." "They can," I agreed. "But that change has to come from within, not from fear of consequences or nostalgia for what's been lost." We left things unresolved that day, but the conversation opened a door that had previously been firmly closed. Since then, we've established a cautious communication. Not the close mother-daughter relationship I once craved, but a respectful distance that acknowledges our shared history without ignoring the pain it contains. As for my father, we spoke on the phone for the first time last month on my 33rd birthday. The call was brief, emotional, and surprisingly honest. "I failed you as a father," he said simply. "I see that now. I favored Madison because she needed me more, or so I thought. I took your strength for granted. I'm sorry, Sierra." "Thank you for saying that, Dad," I replied, throat tight with unexpected emotion. "I'm proud of what you've built," he continued. "Sierra Capital Management. It's everywhere in the financial pages these days. You did that all on your own." "Not entirely on my own," I corrected him gently. "I learned a lot at Blackwood. Some lessons about what to do, others about what not to do." He gave a rueful chuckle at that. "Well, I'm glad something good came from our mistakes." We didn't make plans to meet, but we ended the call with a tentative agreement to stay in touch. It's a beginning, perhaps, a small seed that might, with careful tending, grow into something meaningful. The $19 million from my share sale has been carefully managed, partially reinvested in my new firm, partially allocated to a foundation I established to help young women from disadvantaged backgrounds pursue careers in finance. The Sierra Foundation provides scholarships, mentoring, and internship opportunities, attempting to create pathways that I had to forge alone. Success isn't just about making money, I tell the young women in our program. It's about creating value for your clients, for your community, and for yourself. It's about building something that aligns with your values and reflects your unique strengths. These are the lessons I wish someone had taught me before I spent years trying to earn love and recognition from people who were incapable of seeing my true worth. At night, when the office is quiet and I look out over the Boston skyline from my corner office, I sometimes reflect on the journey that brought me here. The pain of that night at the Oakmont Country Club has faded, replaced by a quiet confidence in the path I've chosen. The hurt child who desperately sought her parents' approval has grown into a woman who understands that true validation comes from within. Do I regret selling my shares and walking away from the family business? Not for a moment. It was the most difficult decision I've ever made, but also the most necessary. Sometimes the only way to heal is to create distance, to draw boundaries that protect your sense of self from those who would diminish it. Do I hope for reconciliation with my family someday? Yes, in my most honest moments I do. Not a return to old patterns, but the creation of something new. Relationships based on mutual respect, rather than obligation or utility. Madison's tentative steps toward independence give me hope. My father's belated recognition of his failures opens possibilities I once thought permanently closed. But even if that reconciliation never fully materializes, I found peace in the knowledge that I respected myself enough to walk away when staying meant accepting devaluation. I found purpose in building something authentic and aligned with my values. I found community among colleagues who appreciate my contributions and clients who trust my guidance. Most importantly, I found the strength to define my own worth independent of others' perceptions or approval. That more than the $19 million or the successful business or the industry recognition is the true treasure I've gained from this painful journey. If you're watching this and struggling with similar family dynamics, feeling undervalued, overlooked, or taken for granted, I hope my story gives you courage. Standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's an act of self-preservation. And walking away when staying means sacrificing your dignity isn't failure. It's the first step toward a more authentic life. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect your self-worth? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this resonated with you, please subscribe, and share with someone who might need this message. Remember, recognizing your own value is the first step toward building a life that truly honors it. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it, but by the courage you show in honoring it yourself.